How you doing?
Good.
Hey, Geno, you're one of the most accurate passers in the NFL. Got one of the best arms in the NFL. How do you balance being aggressive and taking risks downfield versus just taking a profit on a check down?
First of all, thank you for the assessment. I think it all comes down to, really just trusting in your reads. Every play, really has a read, and it's based on the coverage, really. So, you got to start with your footwork and your eyes, and then obviously just trusting your reads, trusting yourself, and being able to throw an accurate ball. I mean, that's the most important thing in playing quarterback. And so, like you said, I feel like I'm one of the best at that, and so I just try to, do the right things at all times and let the game come to me.
What does training camp allow you to do as far as install that wasn't there during minicamp and OTAs?
Yeah, I think a lot of back and forth, with the defense and just being able to, come out here and obviously, we get the reps as far as routes on air and then we do some, team stuff on air. But whenever you got an opponent in front of you, you're just able to get that much better. And we play against, we got a great defense. They're playing in a tremendous scheme. They're challenging us every single day, and it's only making both sides better. You can see it out there, man. Like guys are going back and forth, making plays, and that's what you want from a team. That's a sign of a good team, I think.
At what point does it turn to frustration, though, when they show you something that you were not expecting to see versus fun competition?
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not scouting each other. Everyone's in install phases right now. So, sometimes the defense will have a better play on than we do. And the great thing about our offense is that as quarterbacks, we have the privilege to, get into the right play and, really try to always be in a good play. You try to not to, waste any downs, especially in this league, man. Every down's critical. So, just always trying to get to the right play. And like I said, we got to have answers, and that's something we work on daily.
In OTAs, you were saying that you felt you guys were in a really good spot learning the offense. Now a couple days into camp, how do you feel about the progress, where things are at, gearing up for the season?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. We're only 3 days into camp. Like I said, we got a long ways to go. There can be no complacency in this group, and I don't see that. Everyone's got to continue to push themselves and try to get better every single day. That's the reason we're out here. That's the reason for training camp. You want to build up to the season. You shouldn't be at your best right now, but I do feel like we're at a really good spot. And like I said, man, we just got to push each other every day. We got to go in there and watch the film, clean up the mistakes that we had on the field today, and then, take practice tomorrow with a vengeance, with a purpose, and try and get better.
You said last week you feel like you're still getting better. Your teammates are up here raving about you. Jeremy just now was. What has allowed you going into year 12, do you think, to continue to improve?
Just a mindset of hard work, a tireless mindset, never satisfied, that type of stuff. And then, obviously, God is a lot of that's just God. God given. You got to be able to, improve when you're working hard. And to be 33, about to be 34, and I've gotten faster. I've gotten stronger. I put on more muscle. You got to credit the strength staff here, my people back home who do a great job, and then obviously, just that mindset that I talked about of always wanting to get better and just trying to push yourself.
Geno, what have you seen about both sides sharpening each other's tempo? Can you just talk about that, both in offense and defense?
Yeah, that's an ongoing battle. We like I said, we got a great system on both sides, and we're seeing a lot of stuff, from our defense. And like I said, they're installing right now. I don't think anyone's really scouting the opponent, but they got some good stuff, man, and they challenge us every single day. So, like, when we come out here, I'm just trying to make sure we're getting to the right play, putting guys in the best position to succeed. I think Grubb's doing a great job at giving us options and giving us answers. And then, obviously, once we take the field, we got to execute. That's the name of the game, execution. And so that's the thing that we're trying to get better at.
Well, you might have alluded to it a minute ago, but where do you feel like you've made a stride forward coming into this year?
Everything. I've gotten better at every single thing, including leadership. All those things have got to get better, and, I'm going to take it day by day. That's kind of my mindset. I really don't look too far ahead, but I do see improvements within myself, and it's a credit, again, to the guys around me, to my coaches, to my teammates, to the strength staff, to the training staff, down to, Stu up in the cafeteria, man. Everybody's doing their job and doing their part.
How's this new system challenged you? Maybe in a good way for you?
Just a lot of studying. There's a lot of volume as far as plays and, just protections. And there's a bunch of nuances within the offense that, like I said, we're still learning. It's only day 3 of camp. We've done a lot of great things out there on the field, but I still feel like we got a long ways to go. And so, that's the key thing is to focus on just, incremental, success and just trying to get better and stack wins, one day at a time.
What characteristics are you starting to see in the defense that makes it tough on offenses and quarterbacks?
Just the multiplicity within the scheme. The fronts, linebackers moving. You got safeties, moving. 1 minute Julian Love's in the box. Next minute he's flying back to the post. I don't want to give too much away, but these guys are all over the place and they're flying around. You can see they're out there having fun. We got a great front seven. They make it tough on us. And you saw a few times where I had to scramble left, scramble right. It's not going to be easy back there. So as long as we continue to push each other, I think we'll continue to get better.
You saw Baltimore last year. Was that one of the first times you'd seen a defense do that much of that as a snap?
I wouldn't say it was the first time because I played it. I was drafted by Rex Ryan, and he was the king of that. But I will say that the way they did it, and just the way that they got to their stuff, how quickly they were able to communicate and just get in and out of different defenses, I thought that was impressive. And obviously, you can see it out there on the field.
There's a lot of different metrics out there to evaluate quarterback play, a lot of different stats. What do you think are the 3 or 4 most important in terms of evaluating quarterbacks in today's NFL?
I'll take it back to Bill Parcells, man. He the number one thing you look for in a quarterback is accuracy. Before decision making, before anything. If you're not accurate, if you can't hit the target, it doesn't matter what decision you make. And then decision making, and then leadership, toughness, and all those things that you can rank them however you want. But the number one thing is accuracy at all times.
Mark,
go this offseason and throw in with your guys.
I was down in Florida, my home, down in Miami. Jackson came down, and we got a lot of one-on-one work. We ended up going to Dallas, and had a bunch of guys out there in Dallas. Thank you to SMU for letting us use their field. And then we went out to California at UCLA. Thank you to them as well, and got a lot of work before we got out here. And we got some work here as well, so it was kind of all over the place.
See the benefits of any of that while you're here?
100%, yes.
How so?
Just, I think the sharpness in what we're doing. I think just the accuracy. I think, a lot of guys, it's a new offense, a new system, and you can see guys out there just picking things up really fast. And I think a lot of that is the personal studying that guys are doing and some of the work that we put in, on our own as well.
Keith Blair's back. You practiced against him a lot in his first stint here. Just what do you remember about him, especially that 2020 camp when he was really coming up?
Man, I remember he was it a pick six or a fumble recovery he got in that preseason game for a touchdown. I remember him making a bunch of big hits and just flying around. Really think the world of Marquise. Happy he was able to battle back from some injuries, and when I saw him in the locker room, man, everyone was just so excited. All the guys that had been here with him, we know what he went through to get back, man, and we're wishing him the best, man. I can't wait for him to get out there on the field and keep showing his stuff.
Go ahead.
You mentioned Jackson. Where have you seen the biggest growth today?
Yeah, Jackson, man, man, just super talented player, man, already, but his mental, he wants it, man. He wants to learn, he wants to work. He's calling me like, hey, what is this? What is that? Hey, let's go to the field. He's hitting me up, and that's something you want from a receiver. And all those guys do that, but Jackson's really taking ownership. And the things that he does out there on the field, man, it's self-explanatory what he does. But for him to be taking ownership and stepping up and being a leader in his second year, that's a big thing.
What have you got to know? A lot of quarterbacks separate themselves with their mind, not just their body, especially as they get older. Curious how much of your prep and off-season is improving your mental preparation versus your physical?
I think that's, mental, is an ongoing thing. Obviously, mental health is a big thing out there in the world. So anytime you can try to sharpen your mind, I play a lot of chess, and, we play cards, and I try to compete in anything that I can, but I think it comes back to the certain person. It's always personal, and for me, I've got a lot of motivation, and so I just continue to, fuel myself and push myself, and that's a daily thing. You got to keep going, and you got to be consistent with it.
What have you got to know about P.J. Walker since you guys have had him?
Man, I've known PJ for a little bit of time, just from seeing him. Obviously, we played him last year and seeing him at games and stuff like that. So, always been a big fan of his. I thought he did a tremendous job at practice today. He's a hard worker. He's a guy who understands the game. He's obviously played some big time football and beaten some really good teams. And so I think PJ is a guy who's going to help out our QB room. And if he's got to step in there and play, man, I know he's going to do his thing.
What are your thoughts on the NFL continuing to look out for its players, whether it's the Guardian caps or I know they have a bunch of new helmets? What are your thoughts on that?
Player safety is number one. So whatever it takes for guys to, be safer, whatever it takes to cut down concussions and injuries, I'm all for it.
And what are your thoughts on I know this year too, the Guardian caps are now allowed to be worn in games. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've been thinking about wearing mine. So I'm I'm still debating on if I should wear my Guardian cap. I don't know yet, but obviously I hit a lot of people with my head, so I gotta be careful out there.
Now, you mentioned that you have a lot of answers with Ryan Grubb's offense. Do you feel like there's more parts of the field and quicker throws available to you now than there have been in the past?
I think it's always been available. I just think there's a different way that we're doing things, and I think with Grubb and his system, obviously, like he's proven that he can stretch the field, or he can if you gotta throw short or underneath, it's there too. So the best thing that he does, he gives us options. He gives us like I said, answers, and it's up to us to find where the ball should go based on what the defense does.
You told us that you've gotten better as a leader. You feel like this offseason, how have you done that?
Just continuing to learn my guys, hanging out with the guys, and talking to them, and figuring out ways to not only push them, but as a group, for all of us to allow them to lead, and allow other guys to step up. And I'm not always the vocal guy. Other guys are being vocal and taking ownership. And I saw like Olu, right, like the way he stepped into this offense, and he's leading the charge with the O-line, and they're they lead our offense. The O-line is going to take us wherever we want to go. So having those guys step up, and the quarterback is expected to lead, but other guys have been able to step up, and I've kind of been able to take a back seat and allow those guys to speak up and do their thing.
In the same vein, how important was it in leadership for you to set the tone in OTAs and also training camp and come out sharp and be able to set the tone for the team?
It's a daily thing. Practice is already over, and I'm already thinking about the next thing. So it's one step after another, and so I just try to focus on that. Whatever I did today, that was fine, but got to move on and get to the next one.
Geno, what has it been like working with Grubb, going that quarterback, offensive coordinator relationship?
Man, I think we got a great relationship building here. Like I said, Grubb he's a laid-back guy. He's a cool, calm, collected guy, but he knows his stuff, and he's very stern, and he wants it done a certain way. And it's my job, it's our job to continue to live up to those expectations, and that's why we're out here on the field, man. We got to prove it every day.
Geno, you mentioned you play chess. Do you play online? Do you have an ELO rating?
I play a lot. Me and Tyler, we play on the phone a lot, but me and my buddies back home, we sit down and we actually play. Mm-hmm.
As good as DK's been, do you think that there's another level of unlock for him?
100%. And that's my job to keep pushing him, and that's his job to keep coming and bringing it every single day. And I'm just trying to push him, and hopefully I can be the quarterback that he needs to unlock that. So he's worked his butt off though, man. He's had a great offseason, and I think it's showing out there on the field.
You see anything different at Jake Bobo? He's kind of, this time a year ago.
Yeah.
Sort of first really getting to know him.
Yeah, Bobo's got that swag, man. That's something that we love about him. He makes plays all over the field. Super smart, knows where to be, knows where to line up. I call him Coach Bobo. If you got a question, ask Bobo. He's got the answer. And so we love Bobo here. I love playing with him, and hopefully I can continue to help him get better.
Anything else?
Thanks, Geno.
Thank you, guys.